Welcome back to the Elevate Podcast, the podcast for behavioral health executives. Joining us today is Kenneth Vick, Executive Director at Avalon Wellness Recovery. He's also the author of Recovery Leadership on how to build teams for better outcomes. Ken brings a rare combination of frontline operational experience and executive leadership perspective, having led multiple treatment teams through growth over the last 2 decades. His work focuses on building accountable, high performing teams that improve outcomes while supporting sustainable business growth. In this episode, Ken is going to share what he has learned from the front lines, why leadership failures quietly can undermine the census, and what CEOs must own if they want the organization to scale without breaking. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. How's it going, Ken?
Thank you. It's going good. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge. Would you give our listeners maybe a quick background on yourself? How did you get into treatment and where are you today?
I got into it partially because I'm in recovery myself, but I've been in treatment now, working in treatment from the point of counselor on up. I was a counselor for a lot of years, and then became supervisor, director, so on and so forth. And now I've got almost 2 decades running treatment programs, helping people figure out ways to change their lives. And a lot of what I discovered was the way we run programs needs to be altered. So that's kind of why I got into writing the book. But basically now I am at Avalon Wellness and Recovery in Lawrence, Kansas.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all the great work and committing to helping people get access to care and focusing very much on better outcomes. I'm excited to talk more about that. You mentioned you've written the book Recovery Leadership. Could you expand a little bit on what inspired you to write it and what's the context of the book?
Yeah. So working in this field for a really long time, what I've discovered is it can be kind of a toxic field. It's not really a healthy field at times for workers themselves, for the people on our
Mm,
teams. I have seen so many different programs that it's just burning the staff out consistently,
yes,
and we're not taking care of our team as well as we try to take care of the clients. And I wanted to make a change in that. And so I wanted to write a book that talked a little bit more about what can we do from a programmatic standpoint to improve outcomes? What can we do to improve our staff turnover rate and things along those lines?
absolutely. I mean, I think it's well known in any industry. It starts from the top and trickles down throughout the organization. So when you say enhancing leadership to build better teams and a strong and better outcomes, what kind of leadership skills must be exemplified or focused on in your view?
Um, I think we need to step back and think a little bit more about, really why we're doing this job and what we do and everything.
Hmm.
Realize kind of how we treat our clients and make sure that we're treating our team, with the same respect and care.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things. You can directly connect quality of outcomes with quality of the team. I've seen it
Yeah.
at too many programs now, and so we as leaders, that's where it starts. And if we don't set the example, and if we don't start treating our team like they
Mhm.
matter, then they won't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hear it a lot working with different facilities and leaders, then, the impact from employee turnover attrition, whether it's the BD team admissions or the alumni coordinator, it really shakes things up. So from a patient standpoint, you're coming there to get better. You put your faith in a facility as for them, sustaining your recovery. You're in a very challenging point of life. What can leaders do to enable the teams better and prevent burnout from your view?
Some of it is simply understanding what each person does. Sometimes as leadership, we think we
Mm,
know what the boots on the ground are doing. And, to be honest, a lot of times we don't. So it's engage with them, get down, you know,
mm,
on floor level and make sure we're actually seeing what's going on. And
mm,
then just simply supporting your team. So as a leader, my job is to make my team's job easier. It's not to
mm.
dictate rules, obligations, or anything. We all know what we need to get done. It's
Mm.
I've got to support my team so they can do their job easier. Next thing you know, the clients see that.
Yeah, exactly. Working across different teams, is there um, any particular initiatives that you have experienced over your 2 decades of work in terms of like if you put a strong focus on XYZ processes, initiatives, or team building activities, leadership style that directly impacts outcomes or can translate through the team to that?
One of the biggest things I think that I could point straight at is trauma informed care. Every
Mm.
single behavior health program knows that that's what we do for our clients. We do things not to activate them. We try and make sure that everything is as peaceful and comfortable as possible. But do we as leadership pay attention to do the exact same thing for our team members? And to me, that's sometimes where we're missing the boat. A lot of people that work in this field are in recovery, and so there's aspects there. But as a leader, if I'm making sure that my team is smiling when they walk in the door and that they kind of like to work with each other,
Yes.
you don't have to like everybody, but you got to treat people with respect and care. And it comes right down to first, how do I treat my team? Because that's what they're going to see, that's what they're going to feel. And then making sure that the other part of the leadership team is doing the exact same thing and realizing that leadership isn't a department, it's the whole program. Sometimes leaders will make the mistake of thinking that, well, I've got to take care of my direct team. Yeah, but you work for a company and take care of that team needs to also focus on the entire company.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And probably easier said than done, one of those things. I can only relate to it from other companies I've had under my belt. Reading all these great books, From Good to Great by Jim Collins, or Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or any leadership book will have a lot of principles and systems that you could follow, but actually putting that into system in a stressful environment where is people are very fragile and they go into care and then they need that's a difficult thing. Then maybe there's not time for the employee and the one-on-one and the followed structure and checking in, how are they actually doing. So understandable that there's burnout if the passion is not there, or if the leadership is not in place. What uh, what do you focus on as a leader in Avalon, as for making sure that your team members has some different tools in the toolbox or access to you, or systems to give generate better outcomes?
so a lot of what I do is it's open door policy. And so people can come walk, talk to me, talk to their direct supervisors, different things along those lines.
Mm.
But some of the first things that I do is make sure that we are truly giving the supervision that each person needs. Because more often than not, we're just like, hey, this productivity needs to get met. Well, you can
Mm.
meet productivity, but if you meet with each individual, because just like our clients, our staff are unique, each one.
Mm.
When you meet
Mm.
your staff where you're at, the same way you meet your clients where they're at, next thing you know, I'm teaching one person a better way to work their time and actually schedule structure in one style, and then the next person is a very different style. And so that
Mm.
supervision comes back to, how do you truly meet your team where they are? So a lot of what I do and what I think about is, because of being a counselor, I actually
Mm.
treat, to an extent, I'm not counseling my staff, but I treat them with the
Mm.
same respect and expectations that I did my clients back in the day, as far
Mm.
as each person is individual. And I need to meet them where they're at, find out where their strengths are, and then build on their strengths.
Very well said. When just segueing from that into like building off the strengths and building teams, identifying future leaders that you could promote from within the organization. What do you look for besides just the resume and credentials in terms of taking a leadership position?
I don't look directly at licensure credentials or any of those things specifically. It depends on where your funding's coming from. Sometimes you have to have, certain degrees at certain spots. But what I want to look at when I'm looking to elevate from within, which is one of my favorite things to do, is is this person truly working for the team? Is this person willing to put that little extra in to support a teammate? And are they willing to actually, step up, take responsibility, and can they coach? Can they teach the rest of their team? Will they be the example of what healthy leadership looks like? You can normally tell that when you work with somebody for a month or two, even who has that and who doesn't, because leadership is not for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tend to look a lot about, like, sometimes management and leadership is also two very different things, in terms of a great leader can sometimes be a great coach, a great enabler, a great indirect mentor support of, growing people, giving them the support, the tools, the knowledge they need to grow, whereas just not only focusing on the spreadsheet and the KPI, so to speak.
Yeah.
Two very different things, and one is sometimes is needed, of course, but it's not enough to grow the team, of course. I think that's like, just come talking about the headline of today, which I love, by the way, why you can't market yourself out of a poor leadership structure, bad team. From your experiences, where have you seen this whole truth, and what does that mean?
To me, it's like you can have great marketing, you can have great BD reps, you can have them out there doing all kinds of stuff. But if when the patients, the clients come, if they don't feel that comfort and if they don't feel what a good team does, first off, they're going to feel deceived, which sets
Yeah.
a really bad, really, really bad first impression. And then also, without a healthy team, it shortens length of stay. It shortens
Mm,
people being willing to actually buy into the program and do what they're doing. And so, great marketers need to market truly what the great team is doing, and the great team needs to pay attention to what great marketers are doing. So it's not a one-sided thing. You
yes.
need to make sure that you're working on both sides. And the clients see when you have a healthy team, which comes from
Mm,
positive healthy leadership, or when you
mm,
don't have a healthy team. And when you don't
mm,
have a healthy team, that's where you see length of stay and engagement in program go down.
mm. So that's, as we all know, that's a significant financial impact on the business if the length of stay is reduced, or high AMA rates, all different factors that could be caused of, just not the right team structure, the right care from the team. Um, is that, do you, in your from your experience, is it more in terms of a organizational structure within the facility, how it's operated, or can it be in terms of misalignment, in terms of their inaccurate expectations with the marketing material and the landing page and the near the beach, and then showing up and it's a little house and there's two at staff, or which of those scenarios, or is it both? And obviously, I'm speaking from experience. I heard some stories here and there.
It's definitely both. You gotta have everybody on the same page. So when I sit there and think a healthy team and what we do there, the
Mm,
marketing is 100% part of that team.
mm,
Our marketing team, Elevate, who is amazing, is obviously on the same page with us. And I get a chat, with Charmaine and Elizabeth and stuff, and it just that makes a big difference because we know that we're all pushing for the same thing. And
yeah.
so when they're showing something or doing any of those things, then I know what my team needs to do, and we need to match the same effort, the
Mm,
same knowledge, and the same everything. And then with like the way our calls come in, we answer our own phone calls, and so the team here actually gets to promote what we're doing here, and so everybody's on the same page
mm.
from top to bottom.
So important, so important. I like to reference, like, this is one of my favorite quotes in business growth. It's like, you have a big sales team, you have a lot of sales efforts because you fail at marketing. And you're doing a shitload of marketing essentially because you failed on your product, your solution, or the levels. So, in my viewpoint, the way I see, the future of successful facilities is the very patient-centric, very outcome-focused, which in return increases the length of stay, the step downs, the lifetime value per patient expands. But that also translates into ambassadors for the facility. That leaves positive reviews, that has a spiral effect. And essentially, you can spend way less money on marketing, and you should not really have a huge business development team needed, right? Because you're all of a sudden building a brand of excellence that focuses on the client and its outcome. So I hope the industry turns in that direction. I hope that the payers will convert into some element like that, because I think that would, change or transform the approach for many folks. What's your view on that?
Um, Basically, I mean, we need to get better and the payers need to get better. But
Yeah.
it is specifically, it's like when you're looking at it, every person that comes in is part of a community before they came in, right?
Mm,
And more often than not, they have people that are similar lifestyles and issues and everything within their circles. And when they come back and they're talking to their communities and different things, they're either talking about this team that really pulled together and made them feel like they were at home and that they
mm,
felt heard, or they're talking about this program that, I ran through 28 days and I did everything they told me to do, and here's my pretty certificate.
mm,
And if you get somebody that truly talks about the quality of the feeling they had and
mm.
everything else connected with the team when they're out there, those are huge ambassadors for you,
Yeah.
because they're coming from the lifestyle that we're trying to help with. They're going to talk to other people about it, and word of mouth is very important. We get quite a few people that are
Mm.
referred from past clients. So
It's the best way to grow your census, the most cost-effective way, and the best way to ensure that there's buy-in on the program, the methodology, the structure of the team, etc. So I think it's always a red flag when I speak with facilities that, we run campaigns. We're very obsessed about the cost per VOB and the cost per viable, the cost per admit, and essentially, driving towards full census. But all of a sudden, hey, we got to scale things up. There's been a high AMA rate, or there's some inconsistency in staff, and that in return leads to some bad reviews. That for me is kind of some of the red flags that I look for when qualifying facilities to work with. But I also think it's a very strong partnership element, to your point, to saying about having all teams aligned, understand what is the messaging, what are we communicating, what's the expectations as for the admissions intake process, and essentially the outcome, and making sure that it's genuine, that the whole narrative is authentic. The right hand is not saying something the left hand doesn't understand, and misleading ministry. And I think that very much comes from the top and leadership, to your point. What do you do with your team to ensure that they understand your vision, your notion, and your approach to patient care?
I'm consistently meeting with my directors, my supervisors, and stuff like that, because it is their job to serve the people that they're working on their teams. And so I'm promoting that, but I'm also offering trainings. I'm offering to chat with anybody when they need to. I recommend always, there's a chain of command. Go to your supervisor before you come to me as the executive, and
Mm,
stuff like that. But at the same time, we need to know that nobody is above anybody else in certain aspects when it comes to, we can all jump in, we can all do things, and we're all here together to support each other to move
mm,
forward. And the first thing that I need to do as the executive director is make sure that my directors, my clinical director, my director
mm,
of nursing, stuff like that, my intake manager, all of them are getting what they need to support their team, and then helping them learn how to support their team. Because a lot of times people get leadership direct positions because of credentialing, licensure, things like that that it
mm.
mentioned earlier. And so I try to make sure that I'm coaching my leadership to be better at what they're doing for coaching their team.
Mm.
And I also try to make sure I don't step on their toes, because that's another thing that can actually mess with the program. So
Yes, yes. It's hard, that balance of autonomy and coaching and giving responsibility, and at the same time not just setting hard targets. It's very much, I think, a value-based coaching approach that's needed for that. Let me ask you, what I see very often sometimes with facilities is that, you know, with today's payer landscape, all the different complexities and constant regulations, how do you, as an executive, balance like the clinical integrity of your program with the financial pressures of, for instance, delayed reimbursements, and how does that impact your quality of care? How do you navigate that as an executive?
For the first point of that would be my team doesn't need to know some of the gists of how long it takes the payer to pay or any of those things. So I won't
Mm,
even share certain things. My job is to filter the information that goes to them so they get the things that support them and everything. And then what I've seen over the years are, you pay attention to caseloads, you pay attention to what's actually doable. And part of the benefit of me actually being a counselor and actually doing most of those jobs is I understand what somebody can and can't do when it comes to what is a healthy workload.
mm,
And if you keep your team where they're in a good spot from burnout or compassion fatigue, either or, um,
mm,
they can do more. And it's kind of interesting because over the years, what I've seen are when teams just simply feel good about themselves, their productivity starts matching what's needed. And you coach them as to simple, when do you write your notes, do things along those lines.
mm,
The notes are the bane of most people, most counselors' existence, right? They hate notes because they're behind or whatever. Teaching them how to do that so they stay on pace. Next thing you know, you've just helped them learn how to schedule their day in a way that's actually functionable. And they're smiling more, which means your clients are smiling more, which means your CFO is smiling more. So it all plays together.
yes, yes, absolutely. So you've been in under a lot of different brands, a lot of different positions, and different in environments and different levels of care. Like if you were to give an advice to some of our listeners who has opened their facility within the last couple of years, they have somewhat stabilized. They want to grow from say 20 beds to 40 or 50. What would your recommendations be as to making sure they build the right team and can scale that effectively, besides the marketing and everything else?
First, you got to pay attention to it's like, okay, it'd be great to go from 20 to 40 beds, but is jumping up to 40 beds going to kill the staff that you have? Are you going to burn them out? Are you going to do those? So you have to put yourself from a business point of view into the ability to be able to build the team almost before you actually build the clientele. Because if I go from 20 to 40 and I only have, the team that I had that worked good at 20, all of a
Yeah.
sudden that team that worked good at 20, now they're doing more than they should, more than they can, which is a
Mm,
direct impact on the quality of care that the clients or the patients are getting. And so
mm,
you've got to be able to put yourself in a sustainable way that allows you to build the team before the census. And so that's the business part that you've got to make sure that you can do that. And it's a real fine, juggle in
mm.
between the two, because you can build the team and then, go through a bad stretch, economy does something or whatever. And
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit scary, but build the team first because
Build the
that's
team
what's
first.
actually going to continue to build the quality of care and then the word of mouth and those ambassadors of people that are leaving the
Mm,
program. And it lowers AMAs, ACAs, all of those things when you have a healthy team.
mm. Absolutely. Would you then scale your team or recommend expanding your facility in like small increments if possible? That's obviously not the case if you have to sometimes sign a lease on a larger house or anything like that. But if possible, would you go in small increments?
I would definitely try and take baby steps. Because there's a lot of ups and downs in all of this stuff. Now, if I've got to sign a new lease and I'm getting a bigger building and whatnot, then you might have to look at it a little bit different. But
Mm,
I want the team that comes in as we're hiring more people to fill this stuff to have time to work with the team that's there and actually build part of that culture. I I,
mm,
I can tell you that when I interview to hire people and everything, I don't normally look that much at or ask that much in an interview about can you do the job. The resume tells me you got the skill to do the job or you don't. I'm looking at the culture and the fit of that person with the team.
mm.
And so making sure that they fit the team when it comes into that point. And then, yeah, don't jump too fast. with any of it, because all of a sudden you go from 20 to 40 and you add 2 counselors that cost you a fortune, and you're only at 25. That's not very cost prohibitive. So
Yes. And I've sometimes I've seen, and I always wonder about this, some facilities, and they're sharing the clinical director across 5, 6 different brands, or they have some outsourced staff that is accessible based on the volatility of the census. And I'm thinking always like, how committed are they to the brand? How committed are they to the outcomes for the patients, the levels of care? So is that something that you would encourage? Obviously, I think I'm putting words in your mouth in that sense, but um, is that not something that can directly impact outcomes and thereby census by taking that approach of not building the true team that's a part of your company within the DNA, so to speak?
Absolutely. I mean, I understand from a business point of view, sometimes having subcontractors or different things come in and do things, that there's a certain amount of things you may have to do at times. But even with
Mhm.
that, I'm going to be real picky about who it is and if they fit the culture. But no, I believe in building the true team more than that. Because it's not just having somebody come in that can provide services to that patient, to that client. It's somebody that's going to be a part of the team that's going to provide services to each other, to lift
Mhm.
each other, to support each other. Everybody had
Mm.
bad days, right? And
Yeah.
I can recognize when some of my teammates are having a bad day, and I can step in and do a little extra, or vice versa. If
Mm.
you don't have that type of cohesion, then when this one person is having a bad day and you have a subcontractor coming in, it might actually elevate things and make it even worse. And
Yeah.
anytime you have any of those miscommunications or poor conflicts within teams, clients see it. Clients see everything. Okay. They know what's going on in your program half the time than the staff does. So
Yeah. Amen. And I see it all the time. I'm a big sports fan, and I always internally here at Elevate, I'm always talking about The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls, the documentary on Netflix, and I'm referencing to how these 5, 10 different personalities, they come together as a team and just help each other. And you see the opposites of all these star high-paying players that is assembled to a team, but they're just not getting along. They never win 6 championships in a row. So that the team, that the support, the elevating each other is essentially what's needed. And I think it's even more important than just with the sports, that this is actually people and their recovery that we're talking about. So where can people find your golden nuggets, and where can they acquire your book and learn more about your recovery leadership methodology?
you can find it on Amazon. So you can get it almost anywhere right on Amazon. Recovery leadership, better outcomes, or building teams for better outcomes. And it's right there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
On Amazon. Let me ask you a question just out of curiosity. How long time did it take for you to write the book? And was it like a intense process or something you did over years?
I did the first section of it over years, kind of. And that was setting up the paragraphs, figuring out what I wanted to do. Had my wife help me tell me, does this sound accurate? Smart man listens to his wife, but it took years to set that part of it. And then I got to a point in life where I'm like, I need to do this. And
Mm.
I knuckled down and I put a lot of effort into filling out the chapters at that point. And I probably rewrote each chapter like 4 times, because I would write it and I would go to the next chapter and I'd write it. And then I go back and I read to make sure I'm not being, redundant or anything. And I'm like, oh, this would sound better. And it got real intense there for about 3 or 4 months when I was finally finishing it.
Yeah, no, I could recognize that. Like, I'm just referencing because, having gone through it myself, people ask me, I wrote a book and it's like 400 pages, and people ask me, how long time did it take to write it? I said, it took me 20 years. I had the idea, the frameworks have been, architected, a lot about the structures there, but the ingredients, the elements is something we go back and revisit. And obviously, in an intense 1 year period, then you got it down on paper. So a lot of respect, especially on a topic such as recovery leadership. I'm writing a topic that can help so many people indirectly if implemented. Ken, if people want to get in contact with you, if folks want to join your team and be part of your mission, join Avalon, how can they get a hold of you?
Email at KEN at avalonwrc.com. Or anybody can call at 785-340-0300.
There
And
you have it.
that's if you want services or if you just want, to talk or chat or whatever. My goal is to help our profession so we can help more people in healthy ways. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ken. I want to say also to all the listeners, it's always truly inspired every time I talk with you, whether if we're talking about a website or a call rating process or a structural element on messaging, you're always in the detail and examining it and questioning can it be improved. So I really admire that about you and your leadership. So thank you so much for being on the Elevate podcast and sharing your knowledge with all listeners. Appreciate it. And I'll see you soon on one of the upcoming calls.
thank you. It's a privilege. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks again for dialed in and listen to another episode of the Elevate podcast. If you want to support our message, our mission, please subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next episode.
Behind every metric is a life. Let's help more people get the care they deserve. Scan the